The second session. This council now proceeds to a motion debate on 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation relating to the regulation of ride-hailing services. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I will first call upon the chairman of the subcommittee to study the subsidiary legislation to speak, then I will invite other members to speak. Finally, I will call upon the public officer to speak, then the motion debate will come to a close. I remind members that you must focus on the contents of the subsidiary legislation when you speak and must not speak on unrelated matters. Dr. Chen Han-pen. President, as chairman of the subcommittee on 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation relating to regulation of ride-hailing services, I'm going to report on the salient points of the deliberations of the subcommittee. The primary purpose of these 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation is to set out the regulatory details for ride-hailing services to implement the regulatory regime. The subcommittee held 4 meetings and invited written submissions from the public. The subcommittee supports the administration's introduction of a regulatory framework for ride-hailing services, but raised a number of concerns regarding the regulatory details and had in-depth discussions about the specific arrangements. Matters of concern raised by members included the regulation of ride-hailing platforms, the records to be kept by ride-hailing service licensees and data security, the limit for vehicle permits and the dynamic assessment mechanism, the method for allocating vehicle permits, arrangements for the renewal of vehicle permits, insurance for ride-hailing vehicles, and the regulation of ride-hailing vehicle drivers. Neither the subcommittee nor the administration proposed amendments to the 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation. President, the following are my views on the matter. The essence of the subsidiary legislation is to provide more commute options for citizens that are lawful options. I am very happy that we have finally come to this stage as we've waited for this many years, a piece of legislation that would allow ride-hailing services to be provided legally. Right now, the platforms are operating illegally. In future, how can we make use of our provisions to make sure illegal platforms will be enforced against? Wherever the platform is based, we need to make sure we take action. But how can we actually prevent them from operating? The administration said they will perhaps ask for the relevant platforms to be removed from the app stores or revoke certain individuals' licenses. I think enforcement is very important. I want to make sure we have some sort of flexibility in implementation, and we need to make sure implementation is effective so that we will not allow for the existence of illegal platforms in future. Next topic that has really had great debate is the limit of 10,000. Some thought that was nothing, some thought that was quite a lot. How can we strike a balance? I think the dynamic assessment mechanism is good, but how can we actually conduct the dynamic assessments? After all, the commissioner would be responsible for conducting relevant assessments. We need to make sure the assessments respond to market needs. I hope the Bureau can be flexible in responding to public demand, making sure people can call vehicles when they need. We don't want involution on the other hand either. If people just get the permits without actually working as ride-hailing vehicle drivers, making the permits frozen permits, that is not ideal. We don't know what will happen in the end, but then I believe with legitimate channels, legitimate operations, good drivers can do business in this area, or they can work part-time. For taxis, ride-hailing vehicles alike, society should adopt a positive attitude so that taxis and ride-hailing vehicles can provide good services so that we can have point-to-point transport services that are suitable to public needs. Mr. Chun-ying. Thank you. Providing diversified commute options and allowing operators to provide a better response to the commute demands of the public, enhancing point-to-point transport experiences. Last year, we have already passed the principal legislation. Right now, we have the 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation to set out the regulatory details. I support the subsidiary legislation. I have some comments, however, as the platforms hold sensitive data. The Bureau already asked for the platforms to comply with relevant requirements about personal data privacy, but in the mainland, ride-hailing platforms were actually fined for over $8 billion in fines for breaching relevant rules. And with such fines, it can be quite deterrent. We need to make sure we have similarly deterrent penalties in Hong Kong to prevent abuse of such personal data. We also had multiple safety incidents involving ride-hailing vehicles in the mainland. It shows the importance of in-vehicle surveillance. Right now, as we consider vehicles to be privately owned, we're more prudent about installation of in-car cameras. With ride-hailing vehicles, while they are private cars, provide services with mature technology. I believe the drivers can just turn on the cameras when they have taken on orders. We should also refer to the complaint mechanism for taxi services and set up dedicated complaint channels for ride-hailing vehicles so that passengers can lodge complaints about driving conduct and safety if necessary. Right now, we do have an owner-driver requirement that is promulgated by the Bureau, but regarding what members said about having dynamic facial recognition, the administration thought it would not be efficient and it can really impede passenger experience. But to prevent there being a loophole, we can refer to the mainland's experience. We can have drivers put up QR codes in their vehicles so that passengers can scan the QR codes before they get into the cars to verify the identities of the drivers. We can also have an online round-the-clock platform detecting conduct where there is a mismatch of the driver, vehicle, or the certificate to combat illegal operations. 90% of the users actually make use of ride-hailing services. We have a limit of 10,000. I do agree that the administration should take a dynamic approach, but then we have to understand there is also a fluctuating demand for commute options. I urge the administration to have regard to the usage during peak periods, and if we find that supply does not catch up with demand, quick adjustments should be made so that the strict limit will not hurt the stability of provision of services during peak periods. The administration said they would not have hard set standards for fees charged for ride-hailing vehicles, but if they found unhealthy competition, they would intervene. But I think for different service types, the administration can set out ranges for the fees charged, just like what we have for visitors at the airports, to provide a reference to passengers. And drivers are don't really have the bargaining power to talk to platforms about the order allocation mechanism and the service conditions. I think the administration should set up a tripartite mechanism to protect the interests of ride-hailing vehicle drivers. We have a long-term demand from society for ride-hailing services. I hope the administration can have regard to relevant data and respond promptly to market demand and adjust policies if needed. Mr. Chang Ho-feng. Thank you, President. We have had a dispute relating ride-hailing services for over 10 years. We are finally at the last stretch. I would first like to praise the determination of the current term government. I actually raised a number of suggestions during the subcommittee meetings. I would just like to give a summary today for the administration's consideration. Many taxi drivers are worried that the limit being set at 10,000 could really affect their business. They thought the limit should be just 3,000. I hope they would understand that the number of licensed cars far exceed the number of 10,000. And with the relevant provisions coming into effect, it can tackle the root cause of the issue and combat illegal carriage of passengers for reward. Right now, we have 60% of the ride-hailing vehicles being operated on a part-time basis, and with the 10,000 limit, it would make for a comparable figure. It should not affect the taxi trade greatly. And if we consider the ratio of taxi and ride-hailing vehicles to be 80 to 20, we should issue 15,000 to 18,000 permits with a limit of 10,000 is very prudent. I think we should have dynamic assessments. The issuance of limits is static, so we need to make sure we make adjustments dynamically. We should not have to wait for the issuance of new permits. We should reserve an additional 5,000 permits in quota so that when an announcement is made by the Transport Department to increase the limit, they can issue the permits right away. We should also have a review every 3 months. With the permit fees being not more than $2,000, a lot of people would just try to apply first. And if we've drawn drivers who don't work a lot, it does not help. So we should make sure drivers work for at least 20 hours per month. And for 3 months, if they can't do that, there should be a reminder issued and their permit revoked. We will strike a balance with this. With ride-hailing platforms not setting a fee cap, I do support that, but then I think we should, on the other hand, I think we should have the minimum fee set to make sure we give a fair playing ground to taxis. If there is no minimum fee, we will have involution. A lot of public transport passengers would take advantage of the ride-hailing vehicles, instead lowering public transport efficiency. Some people say we should grant permits for those who are already providing ride-hailing services. I disagree because they are operating illegally at the moment. I support the drawing of lots. In a way, with drivers, if they or platforms charging more, they will benefit and passengers will not know. we should make sure transparency is enhanced with the fees charged by the platform. We also need to provide for a scoring mechanism for passengers to lodge complaints, but there should also be an appeal mechanism. The administration said the driving test fitness requirements will apply to ride-hailing vehicles and commercial vehicles alike. I very much support this. I think this is a step moving towards smart city. I support the administration's amendments. As we do not have enough time to complete the discussion, I will suspend the meeting at about 6:15.
Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Thank you, President. Finally, the regulation for ride-hailing services is finalizing after 10 odd years. The community has been looking forward to the regulation. I welcome the details. We are introducing combined driving test for taxi drivers and ride-hailing vehicle drivers. There is a cap on vehicle permit. We have now a timetable. The most controversial issue is the cap of vehicle permit of 10,000. I welcome the government's cautious approach. If we issue too many permits, then it's impossible for us to reduce the number. The permit will be valid for 1 year time. If there is oversupply of permits after the regulation come into operation, it's impossible for us to collect or recover the permits that have already been issued, and this may exacerbate traffic congestion. The key is how we implement the dynamic assessment mechanism. I hope that the government will announce the timetable as soon as possible so that we can respond to market demand timely. Now the regulations allow the government to issue permit by drawing out lots or accord priority to designated descriptions of persons or vehicles. The community is worried or concerned about whether the government will give priority to new energy vehicles. I welcome it, but I think that the government needs to clarify the priority criteria, and they need to make sure that every time when they issue permit, they adopt the same set of criteria. The control of a number of vehicle permit is the key to effective traffic management. Ride-hailing platform collect commute data and road traffic data of 100,000 people every day. From the perspective of data security, I think that the servers storing these data should be placed in Hong Kong, and I think that the government in the licensing conditions need to include national security law clauses, and we need to make sure that the servers storing this data should be placed in Hong Kong so that they will not be interfered by other jurisdictions. The commute data stored by the platform will allow the government understand real-time traffic data. I hope that the government will make use of the data to improve traffic planning in Hong Kong so that we implement this smart city concept. During the scrutiny period, we received a large number of written submissions. The government is already going digital. We are digitalizing our driving license, for example. I suggest the administration to allow Commissioner of Transport to allow digitalization of permits. Now, in terms of insurance, many ride-hailing platforms in the mainland and in the world take out insurance for vehicle owners who are ride-hailing drivers, but the administration prefer ride-hailing vehicle drivers taking out insurance on their own to prevent dispute. I hope that the government will confirm the insurance arrangement as soon as possible so that the trade can prepare ahead. Now, on the fares to be charged by ride-hailing service, based on our experience in the mainland and other parts of the world, some leading platform company will try to squeeze out their competitors from the market, and they will result in oligopoly and involution. I hope that the government will intervene timely. Over the past 10-odd years, the legislations combat illegal carriage of passengers were rewarded, but due to a lack of enforcement, gray area resulted. The survival of taxi trade is affected. I hope that the government will continue to combat illegal white license cars. Thank you, Mr. Chris Yip. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the 4 subsidiary legislations regulating ride-hailing service. The controversy has been in Hong Kong for some 10-odd years. Hong Kong is a leading international financial center in Asia. We are a popular tourist destination, but our ride-hailing service is lagging behind. Now, this term of the government faced up to the challenge. Last year, they proposed the bill, and now we are scrutinizing the 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation about the ride-hailing service. After implementation of the regulation, will it be easier for us to book ride-hailing service? Would it be cheaper? Well, that hinges on how many ride-hailing vehicles are in operation. The government is now conducting a dynamic assessment on the vehicle permit to be issued. The cap is now set at 10,000. This figure is based on the estimation that each ride-hailing drivers work 6 hours per day and they complete 2 journeys per day. The community has diverging views on the cap of 10,000. I think that the cap is appropriate. If there's too few, then the platform cannot operate, the passengers cannot book their vehicles. If we have too many vehicle permits issued, then we will have too many ride-hailing vehicles on the road, and that will cause traffic congestion and affect the income of the drivers. I think more importantly, the government need to implement a dynamic assessment mechanism. Before implementation of the regulation, the government need to collect big data from the market and adjust supply of permits. Recently, the government has been implementing the dogs in restaurants policy, and they allow the applicants on waiting list to obtain a license. I think that we should do the same with the ride-hailing service. As long as someone quit being a ride-hailing vehicles, we should allow those on wait list to work. During the scrutiny period, I asked the government to collect experience and feedback of passengers using point-to-point traffic service in Hong Kong and other parts of the world. Hong Kong is a international financial center. We are a popular tourism destination. According to a study, we are the second place in terms of the most visited destination in 2025. Visitors, when they come to Hong Kong, they rely on point-to-point transport service. As long as they get off the airplane, they take either taxi or ride-hailing service. So I think that it's important that we ensure the quality of ride-hailing service. If passengers need to wait 15 minutes before they can get a ride, then it will undermine their experience. And if the driver drive the passenger to number 92 instead of number 96 Java Road, then it will hamper our reputation. I think that the government need to conduct a study on the experience of passengers using point-to-point transport service. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the positioning of ride-hailing vehicle drivers. Most of them, 60-70% of them are part-timers. They work less than 20 hours a week. I'm worried that even after issuing the permit, most ride-hailing drivers will not be able to work 6 hours a day. I think that the government need to position the ride-hailing vehicles as part-timers based on the data that they collect. They need to restrict the number of hours so drivers can come online. At the same time, increase the number of vehicle permits. This is how we can make sure that while we have enough capacity, we can drive full-time drivers to the taxi trade. I so submit. The meeting is now adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.